Growing up with Guy was very difficult. He had a lot of rage and difficulty handling him. He just was not happy at all.
I guess what stands out in my mind is as she grew, the behaviors grew. She was a sweetheart and smiles a lot and all that, but then just as extreme would be her behaviors.
It was a surprise to me that, this mild-mannered child would all of a sudden get really angry at things, and it was heart-wrenching and difficult to deal with. But
we were homebound. People did not know how to take Mark, how to accept Mark.
Family members began to distance themselves, and frequency of visitation and coming together as family just pretty much went away. So our social lives also diminished, and that had significant impact on his older sister. But Jonathan was almost he was resistant to leaving the house. We would have to force him to go with us places, and he didn't want to go. He wasn't comfortable in those situations.
Can you imagine a 3-year-old in a 16-year-old body? She was very strong. In fact, she has a sister who's 3 years older than her and a little bit bigger than her. She was stronger than her sister. And so when she was acting inappropriately, we had to be very careful to separate them because we didn't want either one of them getting hurt. That was difficult. When she was acting up, rather than us being able to send her to her room, because she can't understand that, doesn't understand that, we would have to send our other daughter to her room. So that was very difficult for us.
Well, there were a couple incidences where Seth was gone, and it's a real panic feeling because you're like, where could this child be? And all 3 times I did find him, although I had already put the call into 911, because it's like, where could this kid be? I had visions of him running out into the street.
As far as safety, he's got the mental age of a 4-year-old, so you don't, he just doesn't, he doesn't look at danger like everyone else does.
Safety was a huge issue in not going out and going to other places. Like I said, Mark was a flight risk. He would take off, he'd run in the street, he'd plop down on the ground, and you couldn't get him back up. He would bang his head on things, including the van windows. He put his head through a front window. He's fractured my thumb. He's bitten things. He's broken things. I mean, he was like a bull in a china shop.
There's a lot of stairs wherever we went.
A lot of stairs.
Because he would have a meltdown in the parking lot or at the register, and people just glared at you because here's this kid that's screaming.
Yeah, how's his mom going to handle that?
What he told me was, he said, I can't keep having problems with myself. I don't want to have problems with myself anymore. Isn't that sad? Because he had no control over how he behaves. And that was one of the hardest things.
For me, coming to Flat Rock was a hard decision. Placing him somewhere outside of our home or outside of our community was a really hard decision. But I can remember one night we had him enclosed in a space we thought was safe, and I sat straight up in bed, unbeknownst to why I had woken up, but I knew I needed to find Jonathan. By the time I got downstairs, he was just putting the Clorox bleach bottle up to his mouth to drink it, and I realized then that I needed to find a place, and we needed a different level of help and care for him, because it wasn't going to happen with just the 2 of us.
How do we find out about Flat Rock? Well, it's actually through our daughter's neurologist. He was aware of this, of Flat Rock Homes, and suggested we come out and visit, which we did do. And we were pretty impressed with the facility. There was a long waiting list, so we put her name on the waiting list. And we actually had her visit a number of times before actually becoming a resident here, where she'd take and spend the day here and seem to have fun.
She gave me several names, Flat Rock was one of them, and a couple others. And when I called those places, they in turn led me to more places. Flat Rock was the most attentive. They answered a lot of my questions. They got back with me. They even took Seth for a weekend for respite to try it out. And I was really impressed with everything. And I've been impressed ever since he's been here. And he's been here, he's going on 6 years.
The event that made it happen was one day I was picking her up from summer school at the Medina County Achievement Center. And she was dragging me. So she was pulling me. I mean, it wasn't, she was pulling me to the car or wherever. And I remember seeing Ben and I said, "Hey Ben, you got a place for Katie to go?" You know, just as a joke, because it was obvious that she was getting stronger, you know. And I was laughing about it, but he took it seriously. And he recommended, or he knew of, maybe he had clients here, and recommended that we try Flat Rock. And we did, not thinking that she would ever go away.
We found out about the Flat Rock Care Center when we had taken our family to Orlando, Florida to a Angelman syndrome convention, which at the time we were still just trying to find out really what was his diagnosis. And we met a parent there from Ashland, Ohio, whose daughter had been on the waiting list at Flat Rock, and while he was there he received the call that they had an opening. And so he was telling us about the facility.
There's no place, at that time there weren't computers, and went to the library. There was no place that would take him. His IQ was either a little bit high or too low, or he was too disruptive. And his medical health, they just wouldn't touch him. And so that's, the reason we found Flat Rock was a former minister of ours, Don Babel, became the head of Flat Rock. And he spoke at one of the churches. And I had two friends that had heard him the week before, and they said, "This is just what you say you want for Guy." And so we went and listened to him, and it was what we wanted.
I prayed for Flat Rock for a long time. I remember crying and saying, "I can't do this anymore."
And I think it was the following year there was an opening. And they called and said there was an opening, and we're like, "What?" You know, it was...
We thought it was a longer waiting list, so I was like...
Yeah, we weren't really...
ready for this. But,
no, we weren't ready for it at all.
But we were, I guess.
But we needed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, her behaviors had got out of hand, and I was injured, you know, and I knew it was the right thing. It was our blessing in disguise, I guess. I knew what we had to do, and we both knew, and we said, well, we have to do it, but...
Yeah, and as for me, about him coming to Flat Rock, originally, you know, I was the last person to be convinced that he would leave the home. It's our first child, and I didn't want him to go. I just didn't. I felt like I let him down as a father. And so it took some time for me to accept him to be here. It was better for us to go to Mark's world and be with him for the quality of time than it was for Mark to come into our world and have to go through the bad quantity of time. So yeah, it was great. It was a godsend.
Was more outgoing. He seemed very comfortable in the surroundings of his world.
What other successes that I've seen here at Flat Rock? You know, little things, such as getting water from the faucet, turning the faucet on, and more importantly, turning the faucet off. We were shocked. So it's the little things that we really are happy and pleased with that we're seeing here at Flat Rock.
He has done more as far as being out into the community than I ever could that when I had him at home. I mean, he's gone more places and done more things, and it's a learning experience for him because they teach him the transition parts, and if he doesn't do what he's supposed to be doing, they work through it.
Also does puzzles now. While that doesn't seem like a big thing to a lot of people, it was huge for Mark because he had a lot of dexterity issues. And he does puzzles now. That's something he can sit for a few minutes and do. He likes to sort things now. He can sort by colors. He can sing. He can do basketball. He can, be with his friends.
It's been really exciting to learn from him those things that he likes. For example, he is loving the cooking channel, and he likes to stir, and he likes to bake, and he likes to cook, and that's given us a connection. So at holiday times, he's right in the kitchen with us. It's a lot of fun. But those are some of the kinds of things that we really didn't know about him, and we were too exhausted to even explore. So that's been fun.
There's different times when she will say a whole sentence, and it's rare, but she did it here, and it might have been a short sentence, but she said the whole thing. She doesn't usually say sentences, like she says, "Mommy coming soon." Well, that's not a sentence, but one time, not too long ago, she said a whole sentence.
Like Flat Rock has given our family back as far as like we go out and have meals together, and we can actually have a conversation, and Seth isn't just sitting there hoarding his food. You know, he sits with us, he eats politely, he uses silverware, he's used his hands before. So now it's actually enjoyable to have family time with him.
On Easter he was home, and he got up early to make sure the Easter bunny had come. And this was like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and he comes up the steps singing, "Here comes Peter Cottontail," just as loud as he could. That was such a joy because he's happy, and there's such a difference in him.
Flat Rock has cared for our family since Mark has been here because we were able to grow. Just grow overall as a family, physically, spiritually, mentally. We've been able to do things we were not able to do with Mark around. Something simple as having a Christmas party was an issue for Mark. You can't have food out when he's home.
Well, we've seen a lot of growth here because he's basically grown up here. He started out at age 10 and he's now 26. He's had a lot of therapy opportunities. Flat Rock has their own educational center, and that's where he did some schooling and ultimately walked through graduation, had a graduation party.
Flat Rock has brought so much peace of mind to our family, and
Big time.
has given Seth, he's given him a life. I mean, he has friends here, and he goes places, and he's so involved in living what he should be living.
We do bring her home every other weekend, but she doesn't stand for that for very long. What I mean by that is she doesn't want to stay at home for very long. After a day, after 2 days, she'll let us know it's time to go back. How does she do that? Because she can't tell us. She'll go get the bag that she knows we carry her clothes back and forth in, and she'll bring me the bag, letting me know that it's time for her to go back home.
Just we love our child very much, and if we could have her with us 24/7, we would. If I could move in here, I would. But just know that she's in a great place, and it's a blessing, and it's wonderful for us and for her. She would not thrive well, I don't think, anywhere else, including our home. So we do what's best for her.
Yeah, Flat Rock's the best place for Katie, bar none.
We're both older, and we want to know that our son is going to be safe. And it's scary to think that it won't be here. We want this. Flat Rock is so perfect for these children here. All of the parents love this place.
This has been his home for 16 years as we speak today, and it's our hope that he'll be able to live out his life at this facility.
But no, I can't imagine her anyplace else. This is home.
And he calls it home. This is home.
This is his home.
Now that she's been living here now at Flat Rock for 6 years, it really has become her home.